Here's something most gardeners get completely wrong about July. They look at the calendar, see it's the middle of summer, and assume the planting season is basically over, so they stop. They coast on whatever's already in the ground and wait for autumn, and that one mistake costs them months of fresh food. Because July isn't the end of your growing season. It's the beginning of a second one. And the gardeners who understand this, the ones who know exactly which crops to put in the ground right now, they're going to be pulling fresh vegetables in October and November while everyone else's garden is done. Today we're covering 10 vegetables that need to go in the ground this month. Some of them have hard cutoff dates as early as July 5th. Miss that window and you miss the crop entirely. Let's get into it. Why July planting works. The science behind it. Before we get to the crops, you need to understand one thing, because it changes how you approach every single planting decision from here on out. There's an equation that horticulturists use to calculate the last safe date to plant any crop before fall. It looks like this. Take the date of your first local killing frost. Subtract the crop's days to maturity. Then subtract another 10 to 14 days on top of that. That final buffer, those extra 10 to 14 days, is the part most gardeners never account for. It exists because as we move toward the autumnal equinox, daylight hours shorten and solar intensity drops. Photosynthesis slows down. Plants take longer to mature than they would in spring under long, bright days. That buffer accounts for that slowdown. So when you work backward from your first frost date, you quickly realize that for most crops, especially in the northern half of the country, your window to plant opens and closes in July. Not August, not late September. July. The good news is that July soil temperatures, typically between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit, are ideal for fast, aggressive germination. Seeds that would take 3 weeks to sprout in cool spring soil can be up and growing in under 10 days right now. The challenge is heat stress on young seedlings. That's manageable with shade cloth and consistent watering. And it's absolutely worth managing, because what you plant this month will feed you all the way through autumn. Now let's talk about the crops. Crop 1. Zucchini and summer squash. We're starting with zucchini, and I want to lead with something that most gardeners never hear about, because it completely changes how you think about a July planting. There's a pest called the squash vine borer. It's a clear-wing moth that lays its eggs at the base of squash plants, and the larvae bore directly into the stem, destroying the vascular tissue and collapsing the vine from the inside. If you've ever had a zucchini plant that looked perfectly healthy one week and completely dead the next, that's almost certainly what happened. The adult borers complete their peak egg-laying cycle in late June through mid-July. By the time you're sowing seeds in mid-July, that cycle is essentially over, which means a July-planted zucchini crop completely bypasses the pest that destroys spring plantings. Yukon Cooperative Extension and the University of Minnesota both confirm this. A second succession crop planted in July results in healthy, borer-free plants that produce through autumn while spring crops are dying. Now the agronomics. Zucchini and summer squash are suitable for July planting across USDA zones 3 through 11. Days to maturity run 40 to 55 days. In the Northeast and Midwest, zones 3 through 6, Cornell University sets the cutoff at July 15th. In the South and Southwest, you have until late July to early August. On the West Coast, mid to late August. Germination is fast in warm soil, optimal between 70 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. The one thing to watch, if temperatures stay consistently above 90 degrees during flowering, you can get temporary pollen sterility and blossom drop. Consistent watering helps prevent this. Yield potential, 3 to 10 pounds per plant in home gardens. Commercial yields average 17,000 pounds per acre. Plant it now. You'll be harvesting fresh squash in September, while your spring crop is long gone. Crop 2. Broccoli. Most people associate broccoli with spring. They plant it early, rush it through the heat, and end up with loose, bitter heads that bolt before they can harvest properly. Fall broccoli is a completely different experience, and July is exactly when you need to start it. Here's why the timing works so well. Broccoli needs a long vegetative phase, time to build strong stems and leaf mass before it forms a head. July planting gives the plant that vegetative phase while temperatures are still warm and days are long. Then, as autumn approaches and temperatures cool, the plant shifts into head formation under exactly the conditions that produce the best quality. And this is the detail that surprises most gardeners. Fall-matured broccoli is significantly sweeter than spring-planted crops. As temperatures drop, the plant accumulates soluble sugars as a natural defense against freezing. That's the same mechanism that makes fall carrots and kale taste better. And with broccoli, you get tighter, more flavorful heads as a result. Suitable for USDA zones 3 through 10, days to maturity run 50 to 75 days from transplant. In the Northeast and Midwest, aim for early to mid-July for direct seeding, or late July if you're starting transplants. The South and West Coast have until late July to late August. Mature plants are exceptionally frost-tolerant. They can handle temperatures down into the low 20s Fahrenheit, so once the heads form, you have a wide harvest window even as temperatures drop hard in autumn. Yield, 10 to 12 pounds per 10-foot row, grown in 22% of U.S. home gardens. Start it now. The autumn harvest is dramatically better than anything you'd pull in June. Broccoli and zucchini are both crops that need warm soil to germinate fast and cool weather to finish strong. The next crop on this list works on the exact same principle, but it has a unique trick that makes fall the only time it truly reaches its full potential. Crop 3. Carrots. Carrots grown in July for a fall harvest are genuinely superior to spring carrots. Not slightly better, dramatically better. And the reason comes down to basic plant physiology. When carrot roots mature during the cooling temperatures of autumn, the plant converts stored starches into simple sugars as a natural mechanism to prevent cellular freezing. The colder it gets, the sweeter the root becomes. Spring carrots left in the ground through summer heat go the opposite direction. They turn fibrous, bitter, and woody. A July planting captures the best of both conditions: fast germination in warm soil and a slow, cool maturation that sweetens the root from the inside out. The germination tip that makes or breaks a July carrot planting: the seedbed must stay consistently damp. At 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, soil dries out fast, and carrot seeds that dry out after germination initiates will die before they ever emerge. Home gardeners have widely adopted the practice of covering seeded rows with damp burlap or cardboard until the seedlings push through. It works. Purdue University Extension and Cornell both back this approach, suitable for zones 3 through 10, days to maturity, 55 to 80 days. In the Northeast and Midwest, Cornell sets the cutoff at July 25th. The South has until September. West Coast growers have until mid to late July. Yield, up to 12 pounds per 10-foot row. Commercial yields average 26,000 pounds per acre. Grown in 34% of U.S. home gardens. Cover the row. Keep it moist. The autumn harvest will be the best carrots you've grown all year. Crop 4. Bush snap beans. Bush beans are the highest ROI crop on this entire list. Extension data puts their return on investment at 508.6% relative to seed cost. That number deserves a moment. For every dollar you spend on bush bean seeds, you get back over $5 in harvested food. And in warm July soil, between 60 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, they germinate in days, not weeks. The July timing also solves a problem that trips up a lot of spring bean growers: cool, wet soil causing seed rot before germination. That's not an issue in July. The soil is warm, drainage is active, and seeds germinate fast enough to outrun early weed competition. Here's something important to know about July-planted bush beans that most growers don't think about. They flower in late August, when summer heat is breaking. That means they avoid the extreme heat above 95 degrees that causes blossom drop during summer. The plants set pods in milder conditions and produce a clean, consistent harvest. One hard rule: bush beans have zero frost tolerance. They're killed at the first freeze, which is why hitting the planting window matters. In the Northeast and Midwest, zones 3 through 6, Cornell's cutoff is July 15th. South and Southwest, you have until mid-August. West Coast, late July. Yield, 6 to 8 pounds per 10-foot row. Grown in 39% of U.S. gardens, one of the most popular vegetables in American home food production. Always direct sow. Bean roots are sensitive to transplanting, 1.5 to 2 inches deep, and let the warm soil do the rest. Bush beans are a warm season crop. They need heat to germinate and mild conditions to produce. The next two crops on this list work differently. They're cool season vegetables that actually prefer to mature in cold weather. And if you don't start them in July, you'll never get the quality you're looking for. Crop 5. Cabbage. Cabbage is a crop that punishes late planting more than almost anything else on this list. Here's the issue with spring cabbage. Heads form during summer heat. High temperatures cause rapid, loose growth. The leaves expand quickly, but don't consolidate. Heads split. Quality suffers. You end up with something that looks like a leafy rosette, rather than a tight, dense head worth eating. Fall cabbage, started in July, does the opposite. The plant builds its vegetative structure during warm summer conditions, and then as temperatures cool in September and October, the head consolidates under exactly the climate it needs. Dense, heavy, long shelf life. In the Northeast and Midwest, Cornell's cutoff is July 5th. That's not mid-July, not late July. July 5th. Cabbage has a days to maturity window of 60 to 80 days from transplant, and it needs every one of those days. Texas A&M AgriLife Extension and Cornell both recommend starting cabbage seeds in plug trays located in partial shade during July. The reason is heat-induced stunting. Direct exposure to intense midsummer sun can stress young seedlings before they're ready to go into the garden. Start them protected, transplant in late July or early August, and let the autumn do its job. Grown in 20% of U.S. food gardens, yields 10 to 15 pounds per 10-foot row. Commercial yields average 35,000 pounds per acre, one of the highest yielding vegetables in production agriculture. Miss the July window, and you get leafy rosettes that freeze before they ever form a head. Hit it, and you pull dense, flavorful cabbages in October. Crop 6. Beets. Beets are one of the most space-efficient vegetables you can grow, and master gardeners consistently identify them as one of the highest-yielding crops per square foot in the home garden. The reason is simple. You're harvesting two crops from a single planting, the roots and the greens. The July planting timing delivers the same cold sweetening benefit we talked about with carrots. Beets that mature in cool autumn soil convert starches to sugars as temperatures drop. The roots become noticeably sweeter and less earthy than beets harvested in summer heat. Spring-sown beets left in the ground too long become fibrous and woody. July-sown beets mature in exactly the conditions that make them best. One technical detail most growers don't know: what looks like a single beet seed is actually a dried fruit containing multiple embryos. You'll get a cluster of seedlings from every seed. Thin them to 2 to 3 inches apart once they reach a couple of inches tall. If you skip thinning, you get leaves and no roots. Suitable for zones 3 through 11. Days to maturity, 50 to 65 days. In the Northeast and Midwest, Cornell's cutoff is July 25th. South and West Coast have until late July through September. Yield, 10 to 12 pounds per 10-foot row. Commercial yields average 25,000 pounds per acre. 2 harvests, roots and greens, from one planting window. July beets are one of the most efficient uses of late summer garden space available. We've covered the heavy hitters: squash, broccoli, carrots, beans, cabbage, beets. Every one of those requires solid planning and precise timing. The next crop is different. It's one of the most popular vegetables in America. It grows fast, and it has a hard deadline that many northern gardeners don't realize is as early as July 5th. Crop 7. Cucumbers. Cucumbers are grown in 43% of American home gardens, more than any other crop on this list. And the late summer planting trend around them is one of the most practical developments in modern home food production. Here's what's happening. Vertical trellis gardening for cucumbers has taken off across gardening communities. High-density vertical planting dramatically increases yield per square foot, makes harvesting easier, improves airflow to reduce disease pressure, and keeps fruit clean and straight. For a late summer planting where space is already being shared with existing crops, trellising makes cucumbers viable in situations where ground sprawl wouldn't be. The agronomics are straightforward. Cucumbers are a warm season crop that loves July soil temperatures. Optimal germination happens between 70 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. They germinate fast, grow aggressively, and produce fruit quickly at 50 to 65 days to maturity. But, and this is critical, cucumbers have zero frost tolerance. They're killed at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, no exceptions, which means in the Northeast and Midwest, Cornell's cutoff is July 5th. That's a hard deadline. Miss it and your vines will get caught by an early October frost before they produce fruit. In the South and Southwest, you have until late July to early August. West Coast growers, mid to late July. One management note: cucumbers under heat stress without consistent moisture produce bitter fruit. Keep the root zone damp, especially through the hottest weeks of establishment. Yield: up to 10 pounds per 10-foot row. Commercial yields average 20,000 pounds per acre. Trellis them, water them consistently, and hit that early July cutoff in the north. Crop 8. Hackeray salad turnips. If you've never grown Hackeray salad turnips, this might be the crop that changes how you think about what a turnip is. Traditional storage turnips, the purple top varieties most people know, take 60 or more days to mature, have a sharp, pungent flavor, and are mostly used cooked. The Japanese hybrid Hackeray is entirely different. It matures in 30 to 40 days, is eaten raw, and has a sweet, crisp, almost fruity flavor that has nothing in common with the turnips most Americans grew up eating. That 30 to 40 day maturity window is what makes Hackeray so valuable for July planting. You can sow in late July in most zones and have a full harvest before conditions deteriorate. In northern states, the quick turnaround ensures the roots are out of the ground before soil freezes. In the South and West Coast, late July plantings deliver harvests through September and beyond. The surge in popularity of Hackeray among U.S. market gardeners and CSA programs reflects exactly this: a fast, dual-harvest crop eaten fresh that fills a production gap between summer vegetables and slow-maturing winter brassicas. University of Delaware, Cooperative Extension, Montana State University, and UCANR Master. Gardeners all highlight it as a top late summer succession choice. Flavor is best when daytime temperatures stay below 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is exactly where late summer temperatures are heading after a July planting. Yield: up to 10 pounds per 10-foot row at an average root size of 2 inches, suitable for zones 2 through 11. Fast, productive, delicious raw, and virtually unknown to most home gardeners. Crop 9. Kale is one of those crops where timing separates the gardeners who get a good harvest from the ones who get an exceptional one. A July planting gives kale something critical: time to build a deep, established root system and a strong crown before winter arrives. That foundation is what allows it to survive hard freezes, continue producing leaves through autumn, and in many zones, overwinter completely, then push out fresh spring growth before you've even started your new seeds indoors. That's 3 seasons of production from a single July planting. Late summer harvest, autumn harvest through frost, early spring harvest before anything else is ready. Gardening forums have widely highlighted this behavior: July-sown kale as a winter-hardy crop that bridges 2 growing seasons. Kale survives temperatures down to 10 degrees Fahrenheit without structural damage. And like broccoli, cold exposure triggers sugar accumulation in the leaves. Frost-kissed kale is sweeter and more flavorful than summer kale. which is why fall and winter harvests are the ones most growers prefer. Young plants benefit from shade cloth during hot July afternoons to reduce heat stress during establishment. Once rooted, they're highly resilient, suitable for zones 2 through 11, days to maturity, 50 to 65 days. In the Northeast and Midwest, aim for mid to late July. South and West Coast have until late August and September, respectively. Yield: approximately 1.5 pounds per square foot through continuous outer leaf harvesting. Leafy greens as a category are grown in 29% of U.S. gardens. Plant it once in July. Harvest it for the next 8 to 10 months. Crop 10. Sweet corn. Sweet corn closes out this list, and it's the one crop here that requires the most precise timing and the most deliberate cultivar selection to make a July planting work. Standard sweet corn varieties run 75 to 90 days to maturity. In most northern zones, that's simply too long for a July planting. The ears would still be developing when the first autumn frost hits, killing the plant before sugar development is complete. The solution is short-season cultivars. Varieties like Yukon Chief and Early Sunglow are specifically bred for fast maturity, hitting harvest in 60 to 75 days. Purdue University Extension and the University of Missouri both emphasize this for late summer plantings, short season only. The agronomic advantage of July planting for corn is immediate. Soil temperatures between 75 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit produce germination in just 4 to 7 days. That's rapid establishment with strong early root development going into the growing season. In the Northeast and Midwest, zones 4 through 6, Cornell's cutoff is July 5th for early maturing varieties. South and Southwest, late July to early August. West Coast, mid to late July. One practical note: sweet corn is a high nitrogen, high space crop. It needs rich soil and block planting for adequate pollination, minimum 4 rows wide, not single rows. If your garden space is limited, the other crops on this list will give you better food production per square foot. But if you have the space and the right cultivar, a July planting of sweet corn can deliver ears in September that are as good as anything you'd grow in summer. Yield: 1 to 2 ears per plant, averaging 10 to 15 ears per 10-foot row. Short season variety. July 5th cutoff in the north. Block planting for pollination. Get those details right, and it works. So there are your 10 crops for July. Let me give you 3 things to take away from everything we covered today. First, check your first frost date and work backward using the planting equation. Frost date minus days to maturity, minus 10 to 14 days. That's your deadline for each crop. Some of them, cucumbers, cabbage, sweet corn, have cutoffs as early as July 5th. Don't wait. Second, always prioritize fast-maturing cultivars when buying seeds for late summer planting. The days to maturity number on the seed packet is your most important piece of information right now. Third, keep soil moisture consistent during establishment. July heat dries the top inch of soil fast. Light mulch, shade cloth, or daily misting during the first 2 weeks will make the difference between a successful germination and a failed one. Now, if you're planning a fall garden, the next question is where to plant all of these crops after your spring vegetables come out. How do you prepare a depleted midsummer bed? What do you add back to the soil? How do you manage the transition between seasons without losing weeks of growing time? That's exactly what the next video covers, and if you're serious about maximizing your fall harvest, it's the one you need to watch next.